So, uh, so today we'll continue from where we left. I think this thing. Yeah. So yesterday we just discussed about how quantum mechanical operator, when you measure, and then they are related to macroscopic classical mechanics. And all these so far, as I mentioned earlier, that these are actually so-called Schrodinger wave picture. And there is another picture also mentioned earlier. It's called Heisenberg picture. So in Schrodinger picture, the time dependence of an evolving quantum system. That means as a function of time, that wave function or quantum state that evolve, and that evolving wave function we express in this form, right? So psi t at any instant of time t, then psi 0, what was there at t equal to 0, any system or any incident happened, quantum mechanical incident, that time whatever the wave function we define by psi 0, and then it evolves. If we know the Hamiltonian operator, then we can express like this. And in this case, we assume that Hamiltonian is constant over time, does not change, but the wave function evolves. So, however, it is sometimes it is beneficial, extremely beneficial, to transfer this time dependence part. Instead of carrying it with the wave function, it is carried over to operator. Okay, and that thing actually presented by Heisenberg, and that's why we call it as a Heisenberg picture, the Heisenberg picture. So what is that? Just let us start with our common concept of expectation, value of some operator, say unknown operator. It can be anything, position, momentum, energy, so on. So that operator we define as x now. And that is actually uh, we can impose on given at any given instant of time. So what is the expectation for that operator? So we are assuming at the moment that x is time independent. Wave functions are time dependent. Then if I just within bra and Kate, if we just include the time evolution of the wave function, definitely we can write that e to the power minus I ht by h bar. So that one, and this one we are writing here. Just instead of psi t, we are writing psi 0, this part here. Now, you see this thing, I just keep the left side as it is, and right hand side, what we did, this thing, within whatever within the bra, that I am taking outside the bra vector here, psi 0, that time dependent part. Then you know that the complex conjugate will be there, so minus I will become I here. And from the Kate, if we take outside, it does not change. So we write directly e to the power minus ht, something like that. So this thing, now we see that at t equal to 0, whatever wave function is there, that is in the bra, and it's a Kate, and we can assume that this is the new function expectation of or expectation, or you can say that you are measuring at time instant t by changing is your operator in this form. Then I think mathematical point of view, I don't see any change, right? So I just give this is the new operator together as a expectation value at time t instant, but we don't need to bother about what is the wave function was there, is evolving or not. We assumed in this picture that the wave function is not changing. So you know, this is a mathematical tool. As long as we keep all the mathematical property intact, and then I think we can change our variable whatever way we want, whatever way we find comfortable. So now we write this one as xt. So that is how we say that xt is now, this operator is now time evolving. Okay. So if we know the how the operator is it's changing as a function of time, evolving as a function of time, then I can consider that the wave function is fixed. It is not evolving. So that some application it is advantageous. So we use that. This is called Heisenberg picture. Yeah. Okay. Now this when you say that this operator is time evolving, I think most important thing is that any function, you know, that instead of knowing the details of the function, I think it is always good to know also the derivative. So if you know the derivative at any point of instant of time, you can find what could be the change, and what you can predict what is going to happen in future. So we just try to find out if this is defined, your operator, this unknown operator, whatever we mentioned here, that is defined like this, and then you take a derivative of this one. When you take a derivative, then you can consider that these three terms are there, three variables are there. First variable is this one, and second variable x, and third variable is this one. And of course, whenever I am writing here, this x is as before in Schrodinger picture, that is actually time independent, constant. But this one is time dependent. Yeah. So if I do some derivative first, for example, I take derivative of this one first, and I'm keeping all other things intact. Then you get IH by h bar, that is taking outside exponential. So this one is this one, and I'm keeping this one. And then if I do derivative with respect to time x, that means 0. That's a time independent, 0. So then only third term, if I do derivative, then I get what you get, I get this minus sign will be there. So minus sign I put here, and then IH by h bar here. So as it is there, I think it should not be a problem, right? Now, if you look it carefully, in principle, this Hamiltonian here, if you see that this Hamiltonian and this one, they actually, you can interchange them. They actually can commute. So in principle, this one you can write I by I over h bar, and then hx minus xh. So what you can say that this thing, this is together is your xt, together is your xt, and then this one, if you take this side, then you get that oh sorry, this one if you take this side, then you can get xt times h. So h xt minus xth, right? So that can be written as something like this, so-called commutation relationship. So we are writing inside the box. So that means, so it's a very important that this thing, this time derivative of any time evolving operator, you can find if you know at that instant what is the how it is commuting with the Hamiltonian of that operator. So if you know the commutation relationship of that operator at that moment of time, then I can say that, okay, this would be your derivative, how that will be evolved. So this is one of the important equations we will be using. So just I mentioned a few important things is that because this thing, this time dependent operator, how it came into picture, it is actually almost contemporary to Schrodinger wave equation. In 1926, 1925, 1926, that time Schrodinger actually deliberated his celebrated Schrodinger wave equation. Almost in the same time, Heisenberg developed completely independently, without any interaction with Schrodinger, another quantum theory that is based on matrix formalism. That time actually the matrix things are completely new. People were a little bit hesitant to accustomed with it, but that was a very powerful. Later on, it is being used almost everywhere. That Heisenberg's matrix formalism, and that is actually known as matrix mechanics, which was quickly shown to be fully equivalent to Schrodinger's wave equations. So later on, it has been proved that whatever Heisenberg is being developing using matrix mechanism, it's completely compatible or equivalent to the Schrodinger wave equation. Though if you see any quantum mechanics books, I think if it starts, always it starts with the Schrodinger wave equation, because very basic thing we can more or less less abstract point if you just think quantum mechanics, if you just consider Schrodinger equation. But mathematically, I think this Heisenberg's matrix mechanics is more powerful. So it's just a point to note here. I think you may know, but I think this is important. So his 1932 Nobel Prize means Heisenberg's Nobel Prize in physics cited not only his work on quantum theory but also work in nuclear physics, in which he predicted that subsequently verified existence of two allotropic forms of molecular hydrogen, and that is differing in their values of nuclear spin. So spin actually, that is he demonstrated in using his quantum matrix mechanics. So actually, he was the fearsome German scientist at that time, because of whom actually that time, you know, this Heisenberg was a well-known nuclear scientist that time. He understood quantum mechanics, developed mathematics, and he knew how to develop a nuclear bomb. But however, because of certain political reasons, etc., he was not facilitated well. But facilitate well, in another word, he was a very gentleman. So he was not, some people used to say that he knew the outcome of the nuclear bomb. However, Americans thought that since Heisenberg is in Germany and he knows everything, all the theory, he might be developing, German government may be developing nuclear bomb. So that's why they started Manhattan Project. And you know what happened, World War II. So in fact, because this thing was actually caught everybody's eye, because he visited Niels Bohr in 1941 to discuss about nuclear research. He was a completely academic person. There was no intention to build a nuclear bomb. That is what the story says. His biography, it is mentioned. But Americans thought that he is being used to develop nuclear bomb. So that's just a story. So just to emphasize that how powerful. Most of the time we say that quantum mechanics means Schrodinger wave equation, but Heisenberg's contribution also immense. Well, so now we are prepared for almost all the basic thing required for quantum mechanics part, which we will be following for our photonics device applications and their design. But one more important thing, as I mentioned again and again, that quantum harmonic oscillator is the basically simple harmonic oscillator, but it has been treated quantum mechanically and solved quantum mechanically, and the solutions actually so powerful that it has been used for electromagnetic wave, particularly in electrodynamics, and then all the, you know, the consequences, many things, not only for electrodynamics and also so-called quantum photonics things. So I will be discussing today this part, quantum harmonic oscillator. So this part, I think you have to look a little bit carefully. Actually, follow carefully. It is easier path I will be following here. Originally, this simple harmonic oscillator was solved by using Schrodinger wave equation. Okay, Schrodinger wave equation, if you solve, you can get a very nice wave functions, eigenstate and eigenvalues, all the solutions will be observed, found very clearly. But the method is very rigorous method. If you use a Schrodinger wave equation, so the solutions will give you some kind of Hermite Gaussian solutions and eigenvalues. So little bit of complexity is there, but here we'll be discussing in terms of operator. So this operator method, we can directly follow what is the results, and that is actually consistent with the whatever results you get from the direct solution from the Schrodinger wave equation. So this is you have to follow now, and it is easy to remember also and understand also. So if you go back to your originally when we discussed about this Hamiltonian for a quantum harmonic oscillator, at that time we wrote that Hamiltonian can be represented by that p square by 2m, that is the kinetic energy part, and this is the potential energy part. So this thing actually constructed, assuming that a mass quantum particle of mass m, and you just model it like that, it is attached to a spring, and then you apply some force, then it will store some potential energy and release the force, then it will keep on oscillating again and again, and with that oscillation frequency will be omega, that is known classically. Okay, so classical point of view, if you see it, omega can be anything, and your Hamiltonian can be something like that, giving you almost continuous type of energy, something like that. Now you know we have already introduced that this position and position x and momentum p as an operator. So we just directly emphasize that operator in p and x in the same Hamiltonian equation. So Hamiltonian operator we expressed like this. Okay, so you know that p in one dimension, this operator is minus h bar del del x, and position operator here. Now if you just try to handle this in terms of operator instead of Hamiltonian, you see Hamiltonian operator, it is a sum of two operator as such, this operator and this operator, and they involve square term. So p square x square. So handling this p square x square a little bit tough, mathematically I would say, little bit rigorous. That's why we introduced two new operators. Okay, so where those operator will be constructed just p and x, with just p and x, not p square and x square like whatever Hamiltonian is there. So instead of this Hamiltonian, handling directly this Hamiltonian, we can use some other operator, that two operators here we represent at A and A dagger. Just note down that we have not used hat here, but you just consider their operator. Okay, and we define these two operator, where you see these two operator, if you directly look into it, forget about why you are considering m omega by 2h, all these things you are getting, but the main part you try to understand that actually they are basically same, other than just complex conjugate to each other. Okay, so we define a operator, one operator, that is sum of some weightage of the x operator and some weightage of the p operator. Similarly, a dagger also some weightage, and they are complex, and we write just x plus I times this one and x minus I this one, a dagger. So they are basically Hermitian conjugate, we could say that. Okay, these two operator, quickly you will realize that why in this form it is used, because ultimate results you will be getting very nice formula. So that is how probably whenever it was introduced, people tried to back calculate and came to this type of things probably. Okay, that is, but in the textbook it starts with like this, so you have to actually live with it. So now we introduced this two operator of this form. So you should keep in mind whatever constants you are using, but they are basically no new constants you have introduced here, just a rearrange, basically only a different form. Then we will be interested to know how how their commutation relationship, because any eigenstate of the harmonic oscillator, if you operate A or A dagger, then I think if you operate this one or this one, and before and after, what would be the nature, that can be understood by commutation relationship we have discussed earlier, right? So the commutation relationship is a very interesting, that is just a constant one. So that can be shown very easily here. So you know, the to get a value of this what you call that, commutation relation, you need to know a dagger and minus a dagger e. Okay, so you have to subtract then whether you are getting one or not. Just check it. So if you just try to find out a dagger a, then you see a dagger a, it is this one multiplied by this one. Remember that which one is first and which one is second, accordingly you have to put. You cannot write this one multiplied by this one. A dagger you put first and then a side by side, and you try to multiply also one after another, right? So if you multiply, it is basically a minus b times a plus b, right? A minus b plus a minus b. Normal algebra, it would give you a square plus b square, a square minus b square, and so on. But here you know that this px and p, you cannot just write xp equal to px. They also commutes. So that's why we will have actually 4 terms. So first term is corresponding to x square, second term corresponding to p square, and third term where actually p and x multiplication will be there. And if you little bit rearrange that one, that means I by 2h cut xp minus px. xp minus p means xp minus px means that's a commutation. Together we have written 2 terms here, it is there. Okay, so now you see, this is whenever we have just introduced a and a dagger, but if you multiply them, then you get x square and p square. X square term p square, and with that one additional commutation relationship xp is there. And these first 2 term, if you just little bit work on it, then you see just take factor of 1 by h cut omega, then you see you get this one from the first 2 one. That means first 2 terms, that square terms added, that is actually your Hamiltonian. Okay, so this is your Hamiltonian H, that is defined in 132, equation 132. And then the last term xp, we have shown earlier that they commute like their commutation relationship IH cut. So I put IH cut. So this one reduced to H by H cut omega minus half. Okay, so this is a very interesting formula. So a dagger a is equal to h cut by h omega minus half, it is coming. Now you try same way this a dagger. That means you put this one first and this one first. You can imagine what would be the difference if you just this one first and this one second. Then what will happen? This particular last one square term, they will be coming alike. The last term you will have one minus sign, additional minus sign. Okay, so this minus sign, whenever xp you are putting again IH, then it will become plus. So a dagger is equal to h by this one half, right? Now you know a dagger a and a dagger a and a dagger we are getting. They are actually just a difference by, if you see, their difference is just 1, right? So that is how if you try to find out the commutation of this one, this is actually you are getting like this. Okay, so we have this a dagger equal to this one equal to 1, and the Hamiltonian H in terms of a dagger given by. Now you see, if you go back to this one, you try to find out Hamiltonian here. Okay, Hamiltonian, if you just try to find out, that means a dagger a plus half multiplied by h cut omega. You see, A dagger A plus half multiplied by half plus h cut omega. Similarly, if you just instead of A dagger A, if you write A dagger, then it will be minus half. So that will follow from this equation. Okay, so I can write Hamiltonian in terms of A dagger, and in turn A dagger you have already, and this x and p will be there, linear superposition of that one. So interesting part is that, so here one important thing you can find, suppose you operate Hamiltonian on a wave function, eigen wave function you operate, then basically you need to know how that you will get because of this one. Okay, and suppose because this will give you, whenever you are operating this one, you will be definitely supposed to get a real number. That you keep in mind, that any Hamiltonian you operate, if you treat them as an eigenvalue, then eigenvalue has to be real. So that means A dagger A, if you are just operating on that wave function, you must get a number here. Okay, this number can be starting from 0 to whatever things it can happen. So we just mention that for the moment, that this A dagger A, we can just use a new operator called n. Okay, so n operator if you just put, and then Hamiltonian can be recasted at h Hamiltonian equal to n plus half. Okay, so now you see that this is one interesting point here you have to keep in mind, and that is actually if you just try to see that n is 0, somehow you operate on a wave function, eigenfunction, and that thing can be 0 also, n can be 0 also. That means ultimately you can get, when n equal to 0, that means eigenvalue is giving you 0. That means whatever wave function you are getting there, that is giving you nothing. That is actually you are getting 0. But because of the constant half here, you get that particular wave function, even though you operate, that gives you 0, but that wave function will give you h cut omega by 2. Okay, that is what we have introduced in our first class, that is the 0 point energy. Okay, so that is 0 point energy, and we will later on will find that this operator, whenever operating on that wave function, because this is one after another you are operating, and if it is the 0 point energy wave function is there, and you operate on that A, then ultimately you will be getting the wave function itself. Will be, whenever your eigenvalue is giving you 0, then wave function can be considered as the ground state. That is what ground state energy, and below that there no wave function will be existing. So no wave function will be existing which is having eigenvalue lower than h cut omega by 2. So h cut omega by 2, any wave function which is actually giving you eigenvalue of h cut omega by 2, that is the actually ground state. So ground state, we can consider that is a state. In quantum harmonic things, we will be considering that is a ground state, but its energy is half omega. And from that ground state, we will just try to show that how to get higher state. Suppose ground state is known as k0, or some function is given. It is a one-dimensional function, x-dependent function is given. Then we know that this, using this operator, if you operate on that state, from starting from the ground state, now we'll be just looking at the ground state, and from the ground state, if I want to go for the higher state, how we can get. Okay, so in that case, we will see that this A dagger will play a very important role. Okay, so this is just a conclusion is made here, and I think I just new thing I don't want to start now, because another few important things require. And today is 30th September, and I think some classes are they are asking to stop. I think next class supposed to be starting from after 5th of October, and I'll be busy for sometimes for some reason. I think the next class will be starting in the on 8th of October. And I suggest all of you that if any doubt, anything is there, in the meantime, you just clarify. And I'll I'll start next class after this, the 8th October. This week. Thank you. I think today I have to work for some other purpose.